Hey guys, Joe from the Crazy New York Driver Show. Today is Friday, September the 27th, 2013. Welcome to the channel where you can learn about eBay and PayPal changes, and you can voice your opinion, and you can voice it uncensored, say whatever you want. Glad to have your comments. I never remove anybody's comments. Just don't hate, okay? So, let's get right into it. Last week's video really went off quite well, I must say. You guys had some really great comments that you put, and I want to address as many as I can. Especially the fact that through all my planning, I forgot to tell you guys this story about my friend's eBay account that got banged. You know, what happened is, I had a whole nice list of things I was going to talk about, and in the middle of the video, I got interrupted for half an hour. And when I came back, I lost my train of thought and I forgot all about it. Well, that's not going to happen today. First, what we'll do is let me give you the schedule of things I want to discuss in this order. Number one, a rehash of last week's video, and I want to address your comments and questions. Number two, we'll talk about my friend's account, the one that got banged, his 13-year account. Number three, I want to talk about the updated eBay user agreement, which by now I'm sure all of you perused. That's very important. Number four, assuming time permits, current events. Last week we talked about that really weird car accident that was discovered, and I want to piggyback on that if I can. And then, if time still permits, number five, I want to start a new feature where at the end of each video I tell you a little lighthearted story about me being a kid in the 70s in school. I think maybe you'll enjoy it, and I hope you will. Let's hope that goes over well. But let's get started right now. Fast Eddie, once again, asked about why it's necessary for a seller to request a canceled transaction notice from a buyer when the buyer actually refuses to pay for the item and he himself initiates the request. So basically what he's trying to say is, if eBay should give an option, whereas if a deadbeat bidder refuses to pay, the deadbeat bidder would click a button that says, I refuse to pay because, let's just say I didn't read the auction. They would click that. Then it would come to the seller. And if we accept it, we automatically get our final value fee back, plus the buyer should get a strike, all right? Plus, we shouldn't have to then contact the buyer for his permission, right? We don't need the permission of a deadbeat bidder to cancel a transaction, do we? I certainly don't think so. This has been going on for a long time. I know it's bugging Fast Eddie, but it's bugging a lot of other people too. So that's something we should really check out. Now, several people were having a discussion in the comments, fixed price auctions versus your traditional auction. I like fixed price myself because they're low maintenance. I set a price, that's it. Okay? If they want to buy it, great. If not, that's good too. But there are some categories that don't lend themselves to that type of situation. I was talking to Gary, and he specified that coins sell much better in an auction type format than they do a fixed price. And of course I said to Gary, go with what works for you in your particular category. Gary was also telling me about certain sellers in his field that seem to be violating eBay rules and getting away with it quite a bit. One in particular. It seems there's this one seller who is uploading pictures with personal contact information in them, such as his phone number, his address, you know, website, this and that. And I looked at it. I looked at the auction in question, one of them. And what he's doing is he's hosting this picture on his FTP space, and he's pointing to it from the eBay auction. So the eBay search bots are not picking up the text in his picture. Of course, it is against eBay rules. This guy happens to be a top-rated seller. Okay? Now, maybe I've heard talk that some people think eBay is more lenient with top-rated sellers. As far as the ultra top-rated sellers, like people with 20,000 feedback, I would say there is a possibility that's correct. Like this guy has almost 20,000, 19 something in fact. And not only is he doing that, Gary tells me that eBay has certain companies that are accepted as grading companies, coin grading companies. I don't remember the names off the top of my head. He named 3 of them. eBay has these 3 accepted companies, all right, who they've accepted to grade coins. And this particular seller is using a company other than those 3. I think he's using himself, in fact. And he's listing these cheap quality coins and hyping them as the better quality, which they're not. And a lot of newbies are buying these cheap quality coins and getting stung. So I said to Gary, well, I'm really not an expert in the field. I don't know what to tell you on this, but I will put it out there for the viewers and see what they have to think about it. Again, well, I don't know very much about coins, except how to spend them. But I'm sure some of you do. So you guys in the coin field, you want to jump in here and talk about that? It would be great. I've had several people write in about a constant complaint I have with pictures. This is continuing on the picture violations. And that is people who list or who post a picture of 4 items or more, 8, 10, and the auction is for just 1. That is a blatant violation, and eBay is just not acting on it. Now, I know some of you guys say, well, click the report link at the very bottom of the listing. Guys, that's like pissing in the wind. I have done it in the past. It doesn't do any good. All right? I really don't know why eBay lets this particular behavior continue, because it hurts everybody. It hurts the buyer. He thinks he's getting the 4 or the 6 picture, and he's only getting 1. I'm actually thinking about starting a new feature next week where I will actually provide links below to auctions I come across during the week that are violating this policy. In fact, I'm going to make myself a note to do that, because it's really pissing me off. I can't tell you how many times I'll see, an auction for like Ford hubcaps, and you see 4 of them, price $35.50, oh wow, $35. You click on it, and the guy says, I'm selling them individually. And it's not even a quantity auction, I mean, it's just so far against eBay rules, I don't know why they're getting away with it. And for the most part, they're not top-rated sellers doing this, okay? Also, I've had a couple of people complain about stolen pictures, having their pictures stolen. eBay will act on that. They've acted for me in the past. If you can provide the information, like if you have an item like a sports card listed and someone else copies your exact picture, all right, if you report that auction to eBay and tell them that you're listing the same card and it's your picture, and they can see your listing is older, they will act and they will remove that. I would now like to move on to something very important. The new eBay user agreement. When I say new, I mean the one they just sent a couple of weeks ago in the mail, in your email. Most of it is a rehash of things they've had in the past, but there's a few things that are very quirky, and I know a lot of people missed it. It took me a few days to read through the whole thing before I finally figured out what was going on. All right, now the first couple of things I want to point out have to do with buyers. They're aimed at buyers, and this I consider positive if eBay enforces it. Let me just read to you, if I may, for a second here. You are responsible for reading the full item listing before making a bid or commitment to buy. You enter into a legally binding contract to purchase an item when you commit to buy an item, or if you have the winning bid, or if your bid is otherwise accepted. Basically, it's telling buyers they have to pay for anything they commit to, which is only right. But will eBay enforce this policy? Guys, they haven't enforced it for 13 years. Do you expect them to enforce it now? I don't. You know about, oh, I didn't talk about my friend's seller account. You see that? The same thing. I was just about to start telling you about how the sellers are getting their accounts whacked. None of you guys stopped me when I started this new topic. All right? You knew I missed it again. Let's go right back to my friends. My friend was a long-time eBay seller. He's a 13-year seller. I'm a 14-year seller. Okay? His feedback was 99.2, which on eBay is decent feedback. All right? It's not the best, but it's decent. I can find right now at least 50 or 100 people on eBay with feedback worse than that, with no problem. Okay? Now let's talk about his DSRs. His item as described was 4.8 across the board. Communication, 4.8. Shipping time, 4.5. And lastly, shipping cost, 5.0, because he offers free shipping. Now, except for that 4.5, I think he's pretty damn good. Even considering the 4.5, and I'll be honest with you, because I know this guy pretty good, he does tend to be a little slow on the shipping end. I will not make any excuses for him whatsoever. However, in all fairness, if you look at his listings, every one has a 5-day holding period. Meaning, if you buy his item on Monday, it'll go out by Friday. So he's not pulling any punches. He's telling you the way it is. And about 2 months ago, eBay sent him one of those warning letters saying your account is going to be restricted. They lowered his selling limits for lack of performance. But I've always wondered why they do that, because if they want you to perform better, all right, send you a warning letter, but don't lower your selling limits, because that's hampering you from improving yourself, right? That is so stupid. I don't know why they do that. They should say to these people, get off your duff, hustle your butt, and, work a little harder. And this is a warning. But don't take away their chance to better themselves, because that's only going to hurt them. Anyway, they gave him that warning letter, and a month later, without any warning, MC 999. Now, I see no reason why they did that to him. Like I said, I can pick out 50 or 100 eBay selling accounts right now with worse feedback and worse DSR ratings. It is the general consensus among you guys that eBay just doesn't care about any sellers. Sadly, I agree. They just, the last 3 or 4 months, man, something's really turned eBay sour on sellers. I mean, sellers are the ones that make eBay money. So you would think they would want as many sellers as they can get. But I had somebody make a comment that eBay relies a lot on its stock price and making money that way as opposed to from its sellers. What is my opinion on that? Obviously, they don't seem to care about how many sellers they have on this site, because they're doing everything they can to stop them and ban them. So, again, and my friend has called eBay 3 times to try and get to the bottom of this and try and get reinstated, and all 3 times he was routed to the Philippines. Now, guys, if the Filipinos cannot remove a negative feedback, do you think they're going to have the juice to reinstate his account, even if it should be reinstated? That's just a wasted call. I feel people who have been MC 999 should at least get put through to somebody who has juice, who can tell them why. Even if they're not going to reinstate them, they should be put through to Utah and they should be given an explanation why they were canned. Just bad. I don't get it. All right. Let me continue now with the user agreement, if I may. We talked about how they were addressing buyers, and again, I'm very skeptical. All right? I just don't see them enforcing that. If they did enforce it, it would be great. I would be the first one to hold up the eBay flag and cheer them on. But like I said, they haven't done it yet. I don't see them doing it. Now I want to talk about managed returns. Most of you know what they are. But there's a paragraph about managed returns I want to address because it's important. For those who don't know what managed returns are, you as a seller can opt into managed returns. So if your buyer is unhappy with your item for any reason, all he has to do is click onto the managed returns process and go through an automated system. But there's a big fallacy with managed returns, and it's big. If the buyer says the item is not as described, you, the seller, must pay for the return shipping, no questions asked. Now, personally, if the item really wasn't as described, you should pay for the shipping. But who's to say it wasn't, and who's to say that the buyers are going to be honest? For example, as you know, I have a big problem with people buying my item, paying me, getting it, and saying, "Oh Joe, I didn't realize it was just for one. I thought I was getting all 4 caps. I want to return this." Now, if I was in the manager returns, what do you think that person would check on? Do you think that they'd check on, "I made a mistake, I am stupid and didn't read the auction"? Or do you think they would click on "not as described" just so they could get the free shipping? Of course, you know they're going to click on "not as described." eBay, of course, would not verify that. They'll just take the buyer's word for it and clock us for shipping. So as I've said in the past, I do not recommend opting into managed returns. But there's something important you need to know. Somebody mentioned this last week in their comments and I verified it. How many of you guys have already accepted the user agreement and clicked "I accept"? I want to see a show of hands. You. Well, you guys may have a problem. There's a small clause buried in the user agreement that says, by accepting the user agreement, you may be automatically opted in to the managed returns process. In order to opt out of it, you must go to your My eBay, click on Site Preferences, click on Returns, and opt out of it. How many of you guys knew this? I bet not very many, with all due respect. If you have already agreed to the user agreement, you must go into your My eBay right now and check to see if you've been automatically opted in to the managed returns. Alright? I know at least one of my subscribers was. He mentioned it in last week's video. I have not even agreed to the user agreement yet. I'm going through this thing piece by piece. Alright? I want to see how far this is going to go. Now, this is freaky. This is freaky that by just accepting the user agreement, they will automatically opt you into managed returns. Furthermore, I do believe, if I read it correctly, all new accounts are automatically opted into managed returns, and those folks must manually opt out. Now, of course, a new eBayer is not going to have the savvy to do that. So I think you know what that means. So this is probably the most important subject of today's video, is this automatically opted into managed returns clause. So guys, what I want you to do, comment below. Tell me if you accepted the user agreement already, and were you automatically opted in. You will probably have to go to your My eBay and check your preferences to see if you in fact were. It's something we need to talk about more in next week's video. Now, another pet peeve, the global shipping program. This has been getting a lot of attention lately. Alright. In theory, it sounds pretty damn good to me. In theory. Whereas you ship your item to to a local United States outlet, which I believe is in Kentucky, and from there a third-party vendor takes it over and reships it overseas. But there are too many things that eBay doesn't tell you. For instance, that the third-party vendor opens your box, takes your padding out, discards it to the wind, and repacks it in the smallest possible box to make it cheaper and more economical to ship to them. Right? And who, excuse me, who's to say when it's damaged or when it's not damaged? The company that I believe is still working this is Pitney Bowes. I've heard a lot of problems about this. Now, a few of you guys have written in saying that you have opted in and that you haven't had a problem yet. And hey, guys, if it's working for you, stick with it. But it scares me, and I got to be honest with you. I take care in packing my materials. And when I send the box out, it's certifiable. It's durable. I never have things damaged in transit. Also, I should tell you, I want to read this if I may. If you are not currently opted into this program and do not accept the electronic click-through, you will not be able to take advantage of the global shipping program, but you will still be bound by all other provisions of this user agreement. Which means basically what I said about managed returns. Please check and see if you have been opted in automatically to the global shipping program. Alright? Some people have been, some haven't. I haven't. But it could happen. So check that out. Now, a clause on holds, as far as your money being held by PayPal. Very quickly. To protect against the risk of liability, eBay has at times requested, and may continue to request, that PayPal restrict access to funds in the seller's PayPal account based on certain factors, including, but not limited to, selling category, history, seller performance, riskiness of the listing category, or the filing of an eBay buyer protection case. This may result in PayPal determining to restrict funds in your PayPal account in order to manage PayPal's risk exposure pursuant to PayPal policies. Well, how many of you guys have had your funds held by PayPal? I know quite a few of you have written in over the years and said things about this. I myself haven't. I had maybe one time where a guy opened a case, and then PayPal, of course, put a freeze on the funds, but just for that particular amount of money. You know, I mean, that, I guess they're going to do. It's sort of understandable. But I just don't know if they're going to freeze somebody's entire account. Is that what they're saying here? Because I sure hope they wouldn't lock up somebody's entire account because of one transaction. Unless the seller had a real history of scamming people and things like that. Another little PayPal tidbit, which I just came across. Actually, one of my subscribers told me about this. eBay agreed to buy Braintree, a global payment platform, for $800 million in cash in a bid to grow its PayPal unit's mobile capabilities. The Wall Street Journal reported earlier this week that eBay was near a deal to buy the startup, citing people familiar with the discussions. This will give PayPal access to data and lucrative transaction fees from Braintree's expanding network, which currently processes more than 10 billion annually. So, a big company is going to get even bigger. The giant is going to get bigger. As I said, in the very near future, I think, in fact, next month, October, I'm going to do an entire PayPal video. My 1-year anniversary with PayPal, highlighting positive and negative. So I think this is very timely in that it happened at this time. it seems a consensus from you good people that PayPal is not as mean and hard to deal with as they used to be. However, I do get subscribers who still recount the occasional PayPal horror story. So if you have one and want to share it with us, we'd be more than happy to read it and comment on it next week. Comments below on that. Alright, I still have a couple of other things I need to talk about, so I don't want to really talk about any one subject too long. The next item I'd like to discuss really quick, if I may, is an update on that current event story we talked about last week. Remember I talked about the 2 cars that were dug out of a body of water in Oklahoma that had human remains in them, dating back to 69 and 70? Well, you're not going to believe this. The same thing has happened again just the other day, 2 days ago. Just a quick blurb I'll read to you. Cheryl Miller and Pamela Jackson, age 17, of South Dakota, disappeared on May 29, 1971. The 1960 Studebaker they were driving was found on Monday in Brule Creek near Elk Point. To encapsulate, these girls were driving in the year 1971 and ran off the road over an embankment into a body of water. The car sank and they were entombed in that car since 71. The only reason the car was discovered this week was a quirk of nature. It seems that entire area is experiencing a drought, so the water level was dramatically lower. And there was a fisherman in the area who spotted 4 wheels sticking up out of the water. He went to investigate and saw there was an entire car, a 1960 Studebaker. Called the police, and of course, I guess they pulled the car out and found the bodies. One person, believe it or not, had even been charged with kidnapping these girls years ago. But the charges were then dropped as they were unfounded. But it's amazing how another case of some missing drivers has been solved all these years later. I often wonder how many other deep secrets are buried in bodies of water around us. That's freaky, don't you think? Lastly, I want to try and start a new feature and see if you guys like it. And if you do, we'll keep doing it. If not, we won't. I'd like to, each week at the end of my video, tell you a funny and lighthearted story about being a kid in the 70s. I will not mention anything bad that happened. I'm not going to discuss that here, so don't worry about that. This is only going to be things to make you laugh and kind of smile. So, that being said, let me tell you one right now. Yes, I was in middle school in the 70s. And in middle school, I was, it was so-so. I was hot and cold about it. Some grades I really had good times. Some grades I didn't like at all. But in high school, I was one of those kids that really enjoyed high school. I mean, I loved it. Freshman year, I missed 1 day of school because I was deathly sick with the flu. I mean, deathly sick. Sophomore year, I missed 0 days. Junior year, I missed 1 day because I had to go to a funeral. And senior year, I missed no days. I took a lot of interesting classes because my school concentrated on scholastics. We didn't have any DWI education whatsoever. Never did a policeman come in and talk to us about the perils of drunk driving or anything like that. Not because the cops weren't willing, because the school didn't want to sacrifice the hour from scholastics to talk about other important issues. It just wasn't important. But some of the classes I took, I really did like. I took creative writing, public speaking, things like that. And they were really enjoyable. When I was 14 years old, I had this teacher. He was a young guy, and he was a really good teacher. He was the kind of guy that could make any subject interesting. Used to like to assign paperbacks. And all kinds. I mean, most of the paperbacks are pretty interesting too. A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. How many of you guys read that one? Or A Separate Piece by John Knowles. Or The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. The problem with that is paperbacks cost $5.95. Alright? And I guess at the beginning of the year, this particular teacher told us we had to get a certain book. It wasn't one of those three, it was something else. So when you're 14 years old, you're not going to have any money. So I went home from school that night. I said to my mother, listen, I need $5.95 for a book. And my mother kind of freaked out. She goes, oh my God, I don't have $5.95. I can't afford to keep buying you these books. And she wasn't being mean or anything. She was telling me the truth. And I was like, oh my God, I should never have asked. Because when I was young, I didn't come from money or anything, but I didn't realize exactly how bad it was. So I knew right then and there I could never ask for money for another book. I just didn't want to put her through that. But I managed to get that book. So about a month later, the teacher assigned another book, The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. I'll always remember that name. And I'm like, oh my God, no way. Absolutely no way am I going to go home and ask for that money. I just can't do it. I just can't. I said, the only thing I could possibly do here is just not get the book and take a failing grade. I mean, he's going to test us on it. I'm grabbing my Gatorade, hold on. I said, there's nothing I can do. If he asks me questions during class, I'll just act like I don't know the answer. And when the comes time for the test, if it's a multiple choice test, maybe I can guess. I just don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to ask for money for that book. So, let's say we had to get the book on Monday. Monday I went to class without the book. And we're reviewing. And he says, you guys, you better all have the book. And if you don't, you better have it for tomorrow. So I figured, well, I'll get away with it. He's not going to do anything. Next day comes. I don't have the book. And he makes an inspection to see who has this book. And I think 3 kids didn't have it, me and 2 others. 3 of you guys, he said. Outside. Takes us outside into the hallway and says, what's the problem? Why don't you have the book? And there was no way I was going to tell him. I wouldn't tell him. I had no answer. I would not even answer. And he says, guys, listen. You may not come back to this class without the book. So, in my school, no kids were allowed to walk the hallways during class time because every kid was supposed to be accounted for in class. If you saw a kid walk in the hallway during class time, during a period, he was either going to the bathroom or he was up to no good. So the 3 of us had to hide, and I hid in the freshman upstairs bathroom. It was the only place I could hide because I didn't want the teacher to catch me. So I hid in that bathroom for freaking 40 minutes till the end of the period and the bell rang. And I said, this is definitely not going to work out. I can't miss this class. So I eventually did get the book. I tell you, man, I really felt bad about that. Ray Bradbury and the Martian Chronicles. And you know what? To tell you the truth, guys, I can't even remember how I went about getting the book or where I got the money from. But I know I did get that book. I didn't want to get kicked out of class. You know, I mean, I wasn't a bad kid. Not at all. I wasn't a troublemaker in school. Nothing. Never got in trouble. But still, they should take it. Maybe they should take certain things into account that they don't. But not to depress you, not to leave you on a depressing note, I will now tell you what I think is a funny story from the same class. As I told you, I took creative writing. And one of the paperbacks that was assigned is this book right here. Stop, Look, and Write. This book is still in print. It is still available today. This is a tool that teachers use to teach kids to use their imagination. It's basically a picture book. I'll show it to you. You know, it's got a bunch of pictures, and the way the exercises work is the teacher will say, like, open to page 10, look at the picture, and he will either tell you maybe to write an essay on the picture or to describe the picture in 1 or 2 words, and sometimes she'll go around the room, you know, like that, and get each kid's input on the picture. And that was a common exercise he would do. Is the teacher would say, all right, look at the picture on page 10 and write 1 or 2 words that come to mind. And then he'd call on kids at random, and we'd see what the kid had to say and where their imagination was leading them. And I remember this like it was yesterday. I was 14 years old, and he said, look at the picture on page 31, which I'm going to show you guys right now. It's a picture of a man dressed in a doctor's outfit, drinking a cup of coffee and daydreaming. So he says, I want you guys to write down in your notebooks 1 or 2 words that you think best suit this picture. What I'd like you guys to tell me is what comes to mind. What would you have said? So I wrote down my 2 words. So he starts calling on kids, all right? He calls on John Smith, he calls on Bill Jones, and he calls on Joe DeMarco. And the 2 words I uttered were new nurse. He looks at me and he busts out laughing, as does the whole class. That's what comes to mind when I look at that picture. You see a doctor, he's taking his coffee break, and I was thinking to myself, all right, he was just in the OR, and there was a new nurse, and he's thinking about her. I was 14, but I think that's funny. Do you guys think it's funny? Or do you think I should be committed now? Anyway, that's about it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Slightly different than others. Comments, if you would, specializing and concentrating on managed returns and global shipping and the user agreement on eBay. If any of you have been automatically placed into the global shipping program or the managed returns program, you may want to rethink that and comment below. Alright? It's important. I'd really like to know how many of you guys were automatically placed in. Alright? And maybe we can work on that. If you have any questions or comments, eBay or non-eBay, comment below. Also, if you don't mind, tell me if you think I should continue at the end of each video telling you a story about me from a kid in the 70s. If you don't like it, I won't do it. If you like it, I will. I'm Crazy New York Driver, and you're not. Thanks for watching. Hope I didn't bore you too much with this one. Rock on, guys. Let's keep the eBay channels open, the lines of communication open, Thanks for stopping by.